At the beautiful club at Shadow Lakes to talk protection with one of the men that I believe does it better than anyone else, Sam Rosenberg from Impex. This is Jessica Lazar. Coming up on Sunday at the YMCA at the Thelma Lovett YMCA on Center Avenue in Pittsburgh, near the Consol Energy Center at the bottom of the legendary historic Hill District of Pittsburgh. It's ASSERT, and it's free to the public. It's Active Shooter Survival, Escape, and Response Tactics. Tell everybody what it's about.
Thank you, Rob. This is a program that we do with individuals, corporations, and schools throughout the country. We're based here in Pittsburgh, and after the Orlando incident, I woke up. I had a hard time sleeping that night. Couldn't sleep, quite honestly. Woke up the next day, and I realized that we have the ability to make a difference, and I didn't want cost to be a factor. So what I did was I talked to my team, and we decided to offer this program free of charge to the Pittsburgh community. So we partnered with the mayor's office in Pittsburgh. We partnered with the Delta Foundation, who runs Pittsburgh Pride, a number of other organizations, including the YMCA of Pittsburgh, and put this program together in a hurry. And basically, we've got a couple hundred people basically already registered, and we're expecting a full turnout. So I think this is going to be a really impactful event.
They're going to be on Pittsburgh Today Live tomorrow with Christine Sorensen at 9 o'clock on KDK TV2. Now, Jessica, you being a mother and a working mother, this has to give you peace of mind, even with your martial arts background, right?
It certainly does. As a teenager, I took martial arts, but I'm a 40-year-old woman. I'm a mother, and when I found Sam and the Impacts program, I just dove right in because the philosophies, it's a very effective, practical self-defense program, and I'm honored to be a part of the ASSERT program on Sunday. I think it's just a fabulous way to give back to the community, and as a mother, I'd love to reach out there to all the parents out there. This can help give you peace of mind in these very turbulent times. You don't have to be a martial artist. You don't have to be law enforcement. They may not get there right when something happens. They may be on their way, but this gives you the ability to protect your family if a crisis should occur.
You're actually going to see some demonstrations tomorrow on Pittsburgh Today Live, but I urge you, well over 150 people already registered for this free event at 11 a.m. on Sunday at the Thelma Lovett YMCA Center Avenue in Pittsburgh. Now, my three, Sam Rosenberg, John Hudson Security Solutions, Inc., and Lou Gentile, CSI investigators, have done so much to educate me on the world that we live in these troubling times. Of course, former Secret Service agent John Hudson is the guy that is the eye in the sky with the cameras, and Lou Gentile, 25 years, a member of the state police, also head of the DEA in Pennsylvania, and now is the head of the Democratic Party in Beaver County. He was quoted in the paper today, the Beaver County Times, in an article written by Tom Davidson concerning the cuts with government and jobs and, well, payroll in Beaver County. And one of the things that he said about the sheriff, who happens to be a Republican and longtime member of the state police, Tony Guy, in his opinion, I guess the least time that you would want to ever cut someone's budget significantly in law enforcement. Sam, tell him why it's so essential to work hand in hand with what you do and local law enforcement now more than ever.
I obviously believe I'm a very strong supporter of law enforcement, Rob, as you know, and I believe that this is something where we have to stand united. And I agree 100% that the last thing you want to do is cut the budget of a law enforcement agency in this time. If anything, there should be increased funding for law enforcement.
Agreed.
So, the reality is that law enforcement are the professional lifeguards that we as citizens are counting on to run to the sound of the guns and to be there when we need them. And they do a heck of a good job, and the reality is they're getting better at it every day. But the reason for this program, just to kind of dovetail into that, is that this is really a personal responsibility at this point. That our philosophy at Impacts is that it's good to have a lifeguard, but you can't, you have to know how to swim. And this training is swim training in this regard, teaching people what to do if they come face to face with an armed intruder. If you can't run, if you can't hide, how do you fight back? And how do you make yourself capable of running and hiding in the first place and overcoming the paralysis that occurs in these dynamics?
An ex-Marine hoorah got out in 1996, went into the business of a personal bodyguard. Not everyone can afford it, nor can they have it, so you have to be your own bodyguard. With your training and your professional opinion, do people have a fighting chance?
Absolutely. The overarching message of this program is that you are never helpless. The reality is that whether we believe it or whether we're ready to admit it or not, what people have been conditioned to believe is that there are certain situations that you could find yourself totally without a fighting chance. But the reality is that's never the case. Violence is really never random. It's something that always has meaning and purpose to the bad guy. And while we may not be in a position to see the signs, we can certainly recognize better what the warning indicators are and recognize the elements. To me, it's something as predictable and observable a process as boiling water if you know what to look for. So part of this is really empowering people to be able to recognize danger in advance and to better be able to get off the X, as we say, and get out of that situation. But also, it's to understand that they are never helpless, that even in a situation where you have an active shooter, you have a fighting chance, and a better fighting chance than most people have ever thought in their lives. The technique that we teach is actually a very simple one. It's a very simple gross motor bilateral technique that anyone can do as long as you have the full movement of your limbs. And you can apply it first person, you can apply it third person, coming to the aid of another, say a family member or someone else, a stranger even. You can do it close, far, you can do it with handguns, long guns, it doesn't matter. So once you understand and master this one simple technique, which only takes a few moments, you'll really have it for the rest of your life.
Are you more acute now to danger than ever before because of spending time with Sam and Impax?
I think I'm more aware and more comfortable too.
Right.
I think that just being more aware of my surroundings, I feel like I have more control because I can recognize if something looks like it's not safe and I can just avoid it. So I think that I have a more fulfilled life doing that. I travel a lot overseas, and actually this has helped me a few times when I've kind of gotten into a little trouble too.
Well, when you think of overseas, you think of France and ISIS. You think of the tragedy at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. You think of San Bernardino, oil fields in Iraq. It just doesn't stop. And in the news today, you and I both, you of course being of the Jewish faith, have really a lot of respect and love for the Holocaust survivors who went through what I believe the worst time in the world's history. Well, I found out today that Joseph Wilt, the founder of one of the largest real estate development companies in the world, Garden & Homes, passed away at the age of 91. He, an amazing man and a Holocaust survivor. His sons, you may recognize that last name, happen to own the Minnesota Vikings. I've said this to you and to many people on the radio. What I'm seeing happening worldwide now, with all of the terrorism and all the anti-Semitism and just the hate that's in the world, it reminds me a lot of what was going on in Europe before World War II, and especially what happened to the members of the Jewish faith. You hear Benjamin Netanyahu, you talk about it all the time, the Prime Minister of Israel. So I think now more than ever, the entire world has to be on the same page and be prepared, because this is something that you could teach anywhere, because everyone from all walks of life, all corners of the world, are affected by this horrible thing that is terrorism.
Absolutely. One of our mottos is to live ready. And the reality of this dynamic is that we all understand that personal security is a fundamental human need, but it's ultimately an individual responsibility. We know that those lifeguards are coming, but the reality is we have to be able to swim in the moment. We have to be able to face and confront the situation at hand. The problem is, without any kind of training, the way we are wired is to simply lose control of our mind and our thinking apparatus, most likely to simply freeze, to go into paralysis. And what we want to be able to teach people is a very simple mechanism to avoid that paralysis. So at the end of the day, regardless of your physical ability, regardless of your confidence level in the techniques that we teach, by doing it, what you've done is actually program yourself to be able to think under pressure. And by being able to think under pressure, you retain your greatest asset. So whether you want to run, hide, fight, you have the capacity to do so.
Something else, too, in the news of late, you may have read the story about the man that came in with a handgun and a box of ammunition, but because of the great efforts of the Center Township Police under the direction of their chief, Barry Kramer, that terrorist possibility was thwarted. It didn't happen. But that's here in Beaver County. It's everywhere. So people really need, in my opinion, to come Sunday to this event.
I agree 100%. This is a real opportunity. I don't know when we're going to be able to do this again. It takes a lot to put in a program like this on. Enormous amount of coordination, help from folks like you, Rob, just getting the word out. It really wouldn't even happen, quite honestly, without you. So the idea here is that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'd say be there if you can. You will not regret it. This is a practical program that anybody can learn from.
Try to get there about 20 minutes before the event. It's at 11 o'clock Sunday. It is free. It's at the Thelma Lovett YMCA Impax. He always talks about living with confidence. you'll get some if you understand and watch what they do at Impacts. Have a great night from the club at Shadow Lakes.